It's upon the brands to utilize the technology to really identify those different interests and engagements, and then make sure they can target and engage with them on the channel that they like. And
the way we interact with brands, the journeys, how we discover them even, is completely changing.
You need modern technology, and modern technology needs AI capabilities, because otherwise even the technology can't keep up with the speed and just huge volume of data to actually help brands to establish these experiences.
All that is a clear sign, maybe even a wake-up call for all of us to really pay attention.
If your consumers are not there, don't do it. And in order to make that more informed decision, you need to have the data, right? The data is going to help you to make that decision.
Hello and welcome to the EGN Podcast. I'm your host, Efe von Thenen, and today we'll explore the topic of the evolution of consumer behavior through technology. Our guest today is Lucas Bergström from SAP Emarsys. In this episode, we'll talk about how technology has fundamentally transformed the way consumers interact with brands, from the rapid shift in expectations brought on by the pandemic to the ongoing digital revolution. We'll discuss how businesses are adapting or struggling to keep up with these changes. Get ready for a deep dive into the future of consumer engagement. Lucas, so nice to have you in our show. Welcome to Berlin in our studio. And let's start talking about new customer journeys today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Lucas, so you work at SAP Emarsys. Maybe you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lucas. I'm father of two. I started to work in the industry now roughly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I've always been very close to technology on a personal level, but then also on a professional level. Worked my way through solution architecture, pre-sales, always very close to the product, go-to-market experience, then across a couple different roles. And I'm now heading the ISV department, so working with technology partners for SAP Emarsys.
Yeah.
Part of the large SAP company for almost 4 years. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you've had several different roles, several different responsibilities, and Emarsys became part of SAP a couple of years ago, and you've seen that all happen. So we're really looking forward to also the real-life tangible examples that you brought with you today. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the market. As you said, you've been working in the field for quite some years, and I think one big disruption was Corona, of course, and we have pre-Corona and post-Corona. So what has been changing?
Yeah, I mean, despite the things that we experience on a personal level, I think the biggest change that we experienced was the urgency for brands to now really justify their spending when it comes to digital as well as non-digital, marketing and customer experience strategies.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a lot of different shifts and a lot of different movements and where brands needed to react upon. We've seen large retailers that had a huge presence in physical retail stores fail and go bankrupt over the last couple of years. But then there was also the attention on the e-commerce side, on the pure play online and how this actually connects, right? And so a lot of it, we really feel like brands are a little bit more hesitant to now spend money on technology as well. So what we experienced is there was a lot of budget typically sitting on the level of head of CRM teams, marketing departments, and where it's much, much trickier now to get the budget for those brands internally. They would have to go all the way up to the CFO, to the CIO, because they really want to make sure that the technology budgets are spent well.
Yeah.
And they want to have a little bit more control of it, because I think what brands realized is that there is a connection between also the online and the offline world, but you need to be able to actually attribute where you're spending money to really show an impact on the revenue goals of your companies. And so I think there's a lot of pressure for CMOs and CIOs to also report that back to the business. And I think a big reason for that was actually COVID and everything that happened with the economy.
Yeah. And also even the way teams are built. You mentioned that the budget allocation has changed. What kind of impact did that have on the teams like that are responsible for marketing? Are they restructured or?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think a couple of years ago there was a strict separation often that we've seen across like the offline business, the retail business, and the e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
I think now more and more you have the roles of like a CIO, for example, that is responsible for innovation and just the overall customer experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think the brands also realize that, look, if we want to really be the best at customer experience and how the way we are engaging with our consumers across all touch points, we need a department that actually oversees all of them, whether it's like physical retail stores, online, like live shopping, all these new channels that also are out there now. It's not just 1 and 2 sales channels anymore. It's not just retail and online. It connects, and you have many more channels that you just need to oversee.
And especially, we have quite a lot of experts talking about the disruptions that we're observing in the German market. So we have, for example, new trends arising from not even new anymore, like trends you've mentioned, live shopping, and even discovery-driven commerce is something that is quite established in Asia. And with the rise of giants like Temu and Shein and stuff like this, and most importantly, of course, also TikTok with TikTok Shop, and the way we interact with brands, the journeys, how we discover them, even like is completely changing. And and then you have the problem of speed. But I would call it a problem. Maybe it's just a notion. China appears to have an incredible speed in implementing stuff, going to market in several countries at the same time. And like, look at the example of Temu with their expansion within 2 years to so many countries. And like their GMV, putting them among the top marketplaces in the world. You know what I mean? It's so all that is a clear sign, maybe even a wake-up call for all of us to really pay attention.
Yeah. And I think that just adds to the challenges, right? Now marketing teams or brands have to deal with, because you don't just have these economic changes and sometimes challenges, but you also have like shorter spans of attention from consumers, because everything is speeding up. I mean, sometimes, like how quick are we these days to change the song on Spotify, like switch through an ad on Instagram, right? Like if we don't find the right product on the e-commerce store fast enough, we're like, okay, this is not for me. I'm gonna go to a different website, right? And then the one moment they're shopping with you, but then on the other moment, like 7 other brands that trying to get that consumer's attention. And so it's not just these economic challenges. It's also, like the technology, the speed, the different touch points, what the consumer wants. And I think there's much, much more expectations nowadays. Also with the rise of these technologies like AI, consumers understand now what's possible. And they also have a better feeling about, like their own data, and that they can own their own data, and what data they want to give to a brand to get the same level then back from a brand in level of personalization and convenience. And it's really hard. Again, it's really hard for marketers to really make sure they can consolidate all this data. And I think the important thing there is that you have the right technology. I mean, I think we had a quote from FC Bayern that utilizes SAP Emarsys, and they also said you need modern IT, you need modern technology to make it work, because otherwise you can't keep up with the speed, with the scale that the consumer trends and the economy changes actually.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the collaboration you had with them. So how they utilized your services and how you could help them build better journeys. That I'd be curious about that.
I mean, at the end of the day, for them, it was also really important to create a customer experience, because for them, it's about the fans, right? It's a very emotional experience. And so it's not just a pure, like shopping experience of I'm going to buy a jersey and that's a one-off, right? It's a lot more touch points for them across the engagement around the stadium, around different events, about meet and greets, but then also the shopping experience in terms of tickets and the shops.
Yeah.
And so amongst other technology from SAP, SAP Emarsys just really helped them to being able to aggregate all that information and make sense of it in an easy way for marketers to then say, okay, I have different audiences based on this different interest amongst just kind of like some of these touch points around like how they're engaging when they go to see a game, right? Or like who's their favorite player? Do they want a customized jersey? And
customized jerseys,
it's really important for them. And so for them to have the right technology really helped them to then also be closer to the consumers, which at the end of the day also increases or just improves the loyalty those fans have for the team, right? Because apart from their team maybe being good and winning at the stadium and you have a good experience there, they can now expand that amongst all the other touch points, which was super important for them.
Absolutely. I got some more insights about this merchandising and licensing industry through one of the podcast episodes we recorded with Armand from Fanatics. He's head of DACH at Fanatics, and he also gave us insights on how even short-term trends can have a huge impact on what the consumer expects from you. And if a team wins, there might be customized jerseys for that, and it's very, very complex. And you mentioned one thing that is super important. We cannot underestimate how emotional these people are in their shopping experience as well. So they actually pay a lot of attention to everything around this team. I spent some time, we had a guided tour in the Allianz Arena in Munich. So we went through all kinds of press rooms and we discovered everything there. You just really feel it, you watch a game and you go to the store on site, you have your loyalty card and your payment is integrated. It's then you look at the online shop. It's all of this omni-channel experience. I think that's a great example because it's a fast-paced world where everything just has to work. You know what I mean? So I found it interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, amongst some of you just mentioned Fanatics, right? They're also very big in these live shopping experiences. I think it's all for them. It's about these trading cards, and I've witnessed that for the first time actually a couple of days ago myself, right? Because I downloaded an app for live shopping and they open packs, right? Trading card, collectibles. It's a whole different experience than what you would gain from a typical e-commerce shop these days, right? And with short notice, they go live and they can capture 1,000, 2,000 individuals at the same time watching someone open collectible cards and then bidding on it, right? It's
insane.
It's almost kind of like the new eBay.
Yeah.
It's like someone just goes live, records themselves opening packs, finds a cool card, and now people start to bid. And you have just tons of different signals for a brand that is really important to capture at that time. And I mean, even though for brands like FC Bayern, SAP Emarsys is a centerpiece, obviously, within their marketing technology, but also within my role, I experience a lot. And we know that as a company, too, is we're not the only piece of technology that is in there, right? And so modern technology also needs the ability to adapt and connect across the entire tech stack of these companies. And I think that's also really, really important because most of the companies that I think we've all seen fail, one of the big reasons was legacy technology and not being quick enough, right? Because you need to adapt and change strategies so quickly these days. That's also a key part. You need to connect to various different systems, and this all needs to kind of work together really well in order to excel.
I think there's I couldn't agree more with you because I've seen this in real life. In my experience, it's just what you ought to do to give your customers a better service or experience, and what is scenario, what is currently happening, or how much time you realistically need to be able to get there. And when you get there, the whole customer journey is evolved further, So that it's this speed and legacy and overhead that is created through maintaining legacy products, new innovations, and all this, it's very much of a challenge for many brands, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And I think if you then also consider brands that not just operate in like one region or one country, even further challenges, right? Because now you're internationally. You have different consumers from different countries. You have different applications and different touch points, different channels these consumers are familiar with, and almost expect then the brand, if you have an international presence, to also be present across all these different applications. And so we've seen it a lot with a couple of fashion retailers that ship sometimes to 12, 13, 14 different countries, right? Multi-language is a huge challenge for them. So you need the right technology to accelerate the simple campaign building and engagement strategies and make sure you have them available in like 8 to 10 different languages. But then also you can't just send newsletters anymore in 10 different languages. You need to interact across, like Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, all these different applications. Plus, we've seen a huge increase of demand from conversational messaging apps, right? WhatsApp, Viber Business, Line. There's almost like very specific applications within each region or each market. And that's also sets a lot of pressure on these brands because this is exactly what you meant, right? You then also need to be with your consumers across all these different touch points. That's going to become really relevant because ultimately they want the same experience you experienced when you went to the stadium tour, right? And you just had this wow effect because you were there. And in that moment, the brand could actually deliver something to you that was special. And nowadays, these brands need to deliver those special moments across every single touch point.
I think one thing you said is quite important, that this expectation, right? So you have an experience with, like, let's say you're shopping in e-commerce, but you're a consumer in general, like you've also taken a taxi, like, or Uber, or you've watched a movie with Netflix, and like in general, you have a certain experience interacting with digital technology. And I think the expectation is shifting that you expect similar convenient experiences everywhere, including how you spend your money, how you discover products. And like the biggest difference between the West and the East, like West and China, like the Asian markets right now, is, in my opinion, search-driven commerce versus discovery-driven commerce. Like how you interact with brands is shifting rapidly.
I mean, on a personal level too, these applications and the services really set the bar so high, right? Like just the experience, like when you open the app, like simple things, like they know where you are, right? They show you, like the Uber example, they show you who is around you. They show you exactly who the driver is. Like there's a picture of the driver. It's going to arrive in 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and you can even now track them live on a card. That's the convenience that we're expecting, 100%. And I think, that translates into shopping, right? I said earlier that nowadays, and I feel that from my personal experience too, things like site loading page, right, can disrupt a shopping experience. If the site doesn't load fast enough, you're like, oh no, this is not modern technology. Like I expect to click on the show at Netflix, and it runs in full HD. And so I want a shop to load very fast, and I have the expectation that I find the product fast enough, right? Because I also have a consumer, and I have the expectation they know me. I have a customer account maybe or something. I can identify myself. They know me. I've shown behavior before. I shop with them. So I want that same convenience, that same personalized engagements back from the brand. And that's very, very, very difficult. But we've seen also maybe one example from one of our customer, Gibson guitars. It's also a very emotional product. They had a big change because they also wanted to change from just wholesale, right, selling their products through other companies and marketplaces. They wanted a direct to consumer engagement strategy, and Gibson guitar, just the heritage they bring as a brand, right? And I mean, we're in the studio. I saw a couple of instruments around us this morning, so I can definitely just kind of connect to the vibe of like playing an instrument and having that emotional connection there. One of their, or a couple of their most important campaigns are actually these kind of like welcome journeys on the application, right? Because it's a moment for them to capture important information about their consumer. And it's not about like, what products are you interested in, right? Because their mobile phone also allows consumers to learn how to play a guitar, learn how to play an instrument.
Totally.
What type of music are they listening to? You know, like what kind of like interest do they have as consumers? And they leverage our platform to then again connect all these different touch points, understand their consumers better, to then be able to exactly deliver them a much more personalized experience. Like we said, we want from things like Netflix and Uber and all these other applications that did that at very high speed too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you play an instrument? Talking about
I
music?
used to play the piano for a couple of years back in the days, but I think I haven't touched it for the last 15 years.
Well, we have one here outside, so
don't make me play it. You're gonna regret it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that example with music, because recently I started learning the piano with 38 years old. So it's like I have two experiences. I'm attending piano lessons once a week, and at the same time I have like some apps on my iPad and like just experimenting with the app, which is super personalized, which learns from your which songs you practice with, blah blah blah. Where I feel like, hey, take my money because you're teaching. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather pay this money to an AI that just understands and keeps engaging, and like it's very personalized. Like these apps are super developed, so that also is an experience where I can really compare traditional way versus the modern way. You know what I mean? And going back to e-commerce, when I look at these e-commerce stores with like the traditional, hey, you click on a pay-per-click ad or Google Shopping ad, whatever, or you see something on social media, click on it, there's a meta ad, for example, and then you land on the product detail page, and then you look at the size, you look at the color, and then you put it in the basket. There's frictionless checkout. You can check it out. It's all great, but then the new journeys are much different than that. It's almost like in German you have this term Holschuld and Bringschuld. I don't know what this is in English, but like instead of the customer going to a store and going to these pages and clicking and doing all this work themselves and finding the right size, you could be shifting that around and just giving them what they need because you kind of sense what they want. You know what I mean? It's like magic.
Yeah. And I mean, it's certainly things that we're also trying to work on, right? Because we talked a little bit about like these other like conversational channels. Like in Germany, we probably all have WhatsApp on our phone, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's also this, at least the ambition to then get it to a point that you just described, right? Like what do you need the consumer to come to you, right? Sense their interest because of previous engagements. Send them a WhatsApp like, hey, we think you are interested in these couple of products. And then nowadays with those more conversational channels, exactly brands have that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Have a conversation with you on your phone. You as a consumer can like, oh, okay, now don't you have like, I don't know, more colorful sneakers in like size 38 or something?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, sure. Here's a couple of product recommendations that we think you like. Oh, great. Let me push a button and I buy these shoes. I think we're gonna be there relatively soon. We're experimenting with a couple brands around these types of conversational shopping experiences, and I think it's gonna be the future. I mean, you also mentioned AI in your previous examples of like the helping you to learn, and I also think that AI is gonna play a crucial role because we spoke a lot about these challenges, and you need modern technology, and modern technology needs AI capabilities because otherwise even the technology can't keep up with the speed and just huge volume of data to actually help brands to establish these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned conversational commerce. We see Meta investing quite heavily in there. How do you see the future of that? Like, how do you think that's going to shift? Like where we are today, we have businesses using WhatsApp Business and like kind of chatting with the customers. You can connect your feed from Meta to WhatsApp Business, and they show them the products. As far as I know, in Europe, it's not possible to convert these to a sale within Facebook Pay, but I think in the relatively near future, you'll see much more of a conversation which leads to conversion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think especially in Germany, you still need to, at some point you need to click out of WhatsApp, right?
Yeah.
But I think we can get the consumers to at least that point relatively quickly, like that product he or she wants to buy, and then like convert them back into the store and have, I think that's have a convenient experience there, right? Because if you don't optimize all of these, if you now would only concentrate on like the conversational piece in WhatsApp, but your store doesn't allow for like a quick checkout or good experience in the store, that doesn't help you, right? Because then it's gonna disrupt the experience coming from WhatsApp to your e-commerce presence. But I think even to get the experience that we just described on WhatsApp, brands are not fully there yet. Like they're experimenting with WhatsApp a lot. I think what we've seen is they almost try to have the same strategy from like email and some of the other like more kind of like push channels to consumers. And they're experimenting with it, right? We've seen a lot of these WhatsApp channels where it's just almost like a news feed. You can subscribe to them. Brands would push regularly information about new collections or a couple of videos from behind the scenes. But to really get it to the point that we described, right, where you can have this conversation, you can get much more detailed insights about product. It's really hard because you need to connect inventory, products, like live into these channels to make that work. And I think at least that's where we see a huge advantage also for SAP, right? Because we have the technology that can now also combine like back office information, like inventory, live, and like all this knowledge there from the back office, and then combine this with these front end channels, WhatsApp, the website, mobile native applications, social shopping feeds, all of that.
But what makes you, Lucas, believe that this is gonna play a huge role in the future? Like, do you have evidence that the customers do prefer to have this intimate channel to interact with a brand? Because I personally don't see myself interacting with brands on WhatsApp yet, at least in this day and in this time.
I think where we see a lot of interest is also the different experiences in retail. Right. There was obviously during also COVID a lot of interest, and a couple companies even said e-commerce is gonna be the sales channel, right? Like retail is dead, and this changed. And I think we've seen now traditional like online brands now open up like pop-up stores, retail, right? Because they realized that you can give a consumer a much differentiated experience in store than just online. Online, it's sometimes a very transactional experience. Even though, like maybe with like like some of the virtual reality options, it's gonna change as well. But I think for right now, if we stay realistic, in-store experiences are much more interesting for consumers. And I think that's also what translates then the interaction to these conversational channels.
What's so exciting about it, like these pop-up stores?
I think consumers also still appreciate personal experience. Like having a real human in front of them, giving them, like tips about sizing and like an outfit and all of that. And so we are also partnering with a lot of companies that actually concentrate on these in-store and like clienteling experiences. Because also they work much better if you consolidate all the information from their online behavior, right? And I think I've personally also had experience where I started something online and I either realized it was in the morning or I need to pick up the kids and I just stopped there, right? And a couple days later, I'm in the city. I'm actually really close to a store. Like how convenient wouldn't it be if I can go into the store, identify myself, and they'll be like, oh yeah, by the way, you still had these like 3 products in your shopping cart from a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Don't you just want to grab them? We have them because we know what the inventory looks like. We know what you looked at the store. You identify yourself. We can just, like pack them. You pay here right in the store. That's the convenience that we spoke about earlier. And I think that's the same level of convenience that we're going to come to when we have those more conversational experience on the phone.
Yeah. I will challenge you a little bit because I do go to physical stores from time to time just because, as you said, I like having someone guiding me through, hey, this might be a better fit, like, because I'm not an expert in everything, and when I'm buying stuff, so I like to talk with an expert, right? So, but then this very much personalized experience where they know what you put in your shopping cart and then follow up with that. I'm in e-commerce, so we study this, and we know that there are companies like New Store and like others that just like focus on this omni-channel experience.
Yeah.
But I don't really see it. As of now, I haven't really have had that experience where it's like really convenient to go to a physical store. Mostly the experience is you go to the city. I have 2 kids, so it's like always stress that you go to the city and then you're trying to buy stuff, and then it's like you have to carry stuff with you. It's like extra baggage, like you need to park or put your stuff somewhere. It's rather a like annoying thing for me to go shop in physical spaces. But as you said, if this would be the case that they actually follow up, and like, do you have maybe some real examples of brands that already implemented such experiences or maybe about to? So that would be interesting for me.
Yeah, we have one that at least started to really put together their online shopping experience and in-store experience. It's Aldo Group, mostly focusing around in Latin America as well, around like fashion retails, handbags, accessories. And they started to do so. They leverage outside of SAP Emarsys also SAP's commerce product, which allows them to do exactly these type of scenarios, right? And so I'm with you. It's still not the best practice, because I also know how hard it is, right? And I think often if you work in the industries, like we've been all talking about these use cases for a couple of years, but because it also takes a lot of time for these brands to go through these kind of like digital transformational projects to get to this point. But I think we're going to be there in at least 1 to 2 years. We're going to see that much more often. So Aldo Group managed to do exactly that, right? Capture these touch points online, bring them into the store, and vice versa. Because to your point, it's not always just like showing up online, going into the store and have the expectations to then buy it there. Why not the other way around? Like go in the store, you see a couple of products you like I have the kids with me, like my hands full. I don't want to carry now like 2 extra bags. Could you actually just ship it to my home address? That's exactly what they're working towards too, right? Because that's the convenience too. And I mean, then also just the shipment, for example, right, is an experience itself. I think when we spoke about some of the convenience we all got used to from things like Netflix and Uber, let's talk about Amazon, right? Next day delivery, like how this changed the perspective of so many consumers and the expectations, and actually put a lot of these brands under so much pressure to come close to that, right? Have a better fulfillment strategy. And this is also something that we've seen more and more. In addition to these kind of like online and in-store experience, is that more and more marketing teams are coming to us and wanting to connect our technology partners that really concentrate on these fulfillment and shipping experiences, because that's also become super relevant for a consumer. The moment you buy something, you want to know, you want to have that transparency around where's my package, when it's going to be there, can I maybe change it because I'm not going to be home at that point. And it's a great opportunity for brands to also just engage with you in a differentiated way than just this transactional, oh yeah, you got your parcel to be delivered in 2 days. It's like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I see. I observe also kind of a price sensitive sentiment happening. And I'll go back to the example of Temu and these Asian players.
Yeah.
What is quite interesting, they're challenging Amazon, but they don't have next day shipping, for example. They have, on the contrary, 6 days shipping or 5 days shipping, whereas they have considerably lower prices, maybe 1/10 of what you would pay on Amazon. So you also see, of course, there's incredible marketing spending. Temu just spent last year, they spent 1.2, I think even billion, if I'm not mistaken, on marketing spend on Meta. So it's huge, and so it brings a lot of customers, but maybe they don't care that much anymore about like, hey, I'm getting such a good bang for the buck, so yeah, the hell with it. If it takes 5 days, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? So it's also they're having a gamification experience. So that's also interesting when talking about customer journeys, right? So and then you have like what's interesting about Western brands that want to provide a better customer journey. They also have they have marketing campaigns, maybe reduce prices, right? So like 20% off. And then there's the expectation from the customer that they want reduced prices all the time. So how do you make the shift to standardized pricing and get them to maybe like use it as a honeypot, like get them to start engaging with you, and then just turn them into loyal customers,
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, you need to have the data to make the better decisions about this, right? Because not every brand and enterprise out there can act like Temu. Specifically now after COVID, a lot of these brands also prioritize profitability.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just pure revenue anymore. You can't just spend and say like, oh yeah, but revenue increases if you're not profitability also increases or gets better at a given point. And so that's one point. And the other one is also sustainability, right? I think not a lot of consumers are there, at least not the majority is there yet. But I think it's also critics on Temu and some of the other larger players is sustainability, right? Because you know where the products are being shipped from and all these kind of things. And again, this is just 2 other data points that you need. And even though, like it still works, you sign up for lots of these like websites and like sign up for the newsletter, you get like 10-15% off, right? Because acquisition costs, similar to Temu, are still very expensive. And so you want to really make sure that like you can keep those customers coming back and like retain them, increase customer loyalty, and make more money from those same customers, because it's going to be cheaper at the end of the day. And it just brings me back to like having the right data touch points. And even though everyone is nowadays talking about like AI, right? It's the next new hype that we're in the middle of. It's not really new for us as a company, right? Emarsys, even also before the SAP acquisition, like we utilized AI capabilities for marketers to actually stay ahead of those challenges. Because if you can use those AI insights around knowing when customers are about to convert, knowing, like even just from machine learning and these calculations, like how much you're going to spend on your next purchase, you can make a much better decision also on this incentive strategy, right? Because you don't need to just put out a 15 or 20% discount for everyone. You can be very precise with it, right? Because often also discounts have a certain threshold about like how much you need to spend, right? I just got a discount the other day. It's like, hey, you get 10 bucks off, but the minimum spend is 50 bucks.
Exactly.
Almost like 90% sure this is the same threshold for everyone. Right? Because it's still difficult. But we give them the insights and saying like, look, you have an audience that in the next 30 days is about to spend at least 150. So that tells the brand they can use and leverage another incentive that's going to feel much more personalized for you. And it's going to help the brand too with profitability and some of these other criteria, right?
Fantastic.
And so, definitely data, AI, even though it's a very general answer, but I try to be a little bit more detailed with that. It's going to help brands to like compete with these larger strategies when you have large players that like have cheap products, large discounts, and spend a lot on acquisition.
Makes perfect sense to me. And going back to your point previously about what we talked about WhatsApp. I want to go back to that for a second, because like recently I've also seen that Apple made an announcement on the RCS. I think as an iPhone user, one of the biggest disappointments is like you add someone to your contacts and then you want to message them on iMessage and then you get hit by the yellow bubble. You know what I mean? So you can't send them photos. You can't, or maybe there will be extra charges. It's not really convenient. You can't interact with them in a way that you do with the Apple users. But I think that's changing. Can you have you been following that, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, we've been following it. We also have like large partners that work within the space of these kind of like conversational channels. And it was a big announcement, right? Because previously RCS, the technology that allows for much more interactive elements within these messages, was previously mainly supported on like Google Android. And now iOS, Apple said, we're going to support it. Yeah. And that means much more convenience for the consumer, but also much more possibilities. And I think it's just also a way of Apple trying to also not necessarily compete, but also offer an alternative to some of these other apps, right? You mentioned WhatsApp. I mean, there's WeChat out there, KakaoTalk, Line, depending on what region or country you look in the world. And all of these applications invest into more functionality for those applications. I mean, I think we had this Meta or WhatsApp in India. You can buy bus tickets, right? And like public transportation from WhatsApp. Yeah. And they heavily invest into that functionality too. And I think that was just a sign from Apple to also say, look, we're investing in this too, because we want the same level of convenience and functionality for our iOS users when it comes to these messages. So I think within the next 1, 2, maybe 3 years, we can expect much more functionalities, right? Like product carousels, maybe even buy buttons. And so that conversational experience that we talked about for channels like WhatsApp will come much more natively to Apple as well. And it's again just one additional channels brands now have to focus on and probably also experiment with from time to time.
To me, it appears, based on what I hear from you, it appears that competition there is also going to get fierce, like not just WhatsApp, but like other platforms like want to capitalize on this themselves. There's social media players like also X and others that might want to develop their own little ecosystem, keep people engaging, commercialize this time that they spent on the app. I mean, this is what we're seeing with TikTok Shop, right? Which is quite successful in the markets that it's been launched. It's taken a while in Europe, got postponed, but inevitably you engage with a person, they give you a nice experience, they help you discover things, and then you can just pretty much convert as a customer. And you, in many cases, you spend much more than you initially even thought of, right? So
that's true. I think with that, you said these brands or like these tech providers, like whether it's X or Meta, they want to monetize these channels, and they're doing so, right? And so WhatsApp is a pretty expensive channels for brands to utilize, because especially like these marketing messages, they cost a lot of money, right? And so I think then connecting this back to the profitability factor, this is I think very important for brands to also consider when because you can't just use this as a batch and blast channel, right? I think when I started almost 10 years ago, we had conversations with brands like, we want to send like tens of millions of emails, right? Because we see then the better conversion rate to the e-commerce website. And the more you put into the funnel on top, the more we can squeeze out at the bottom. It's not going to work like that with these channels, right? Because you're going to burn so much money in a short amount of time. But if you have the right data insights that we're giving those brands, again, you can be much differentiated, because also not every channel is going to be relevant, right? You challenged me on like in-store versus online, right? Because you might also have a different affinity to some of these sales channels. And every consumer is going to have a different affinity to different sales channels. Some of them will go really crazy about live shopping and like TikTok Shop. Others will still, if you have a physical retail store presence, go in store. They want to experience, they want to touch the products. And it's upon the brands to utilize the technology to really identify those different interests and engagements, and then make sure they can target them and engage with them on the channel that they like. And so we've seen great success amongst, like even just advertisement across TikTok as well, right? Where brands working with us can establish 35x sometimes on return on ad spend.
Wow.
Because they target them in the right moment, right? Because, I've seen negative experience myself where I know I shopped with this brand online a couple of days ago, and 3 days later, they still advertise almost the same products on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
It's money that is spent from those brands.
It hurts.
It really hurts. Yeah. And so, it's going to be a challenge for them to really identify the right channel. And again, you need modern technology to do that. And it's just going to get more complicated, right?
So
more channels, more money to spend, more opportunity, but you also need to spend it wisely and identify the right audiences.
I think that's the key, right? Educated decisions, data-driven decisions that lead to more efficient marketing campaigns and more success in the lower funnel. I think that's the key. And I did challenge you in terms of my in-store experience, but I had another experience recently, which kind of proves your point in terms of like how building these integrated journeys can actually just really make you spend more. I bought something from an Apple store using the Apple Store app in my iPhone. Just normally it would have taken a couple of days, and I just wanted to pick it up on my way in Hamburg, Jungfernstieg. And I went to the store. I parked my bike outside. Just took me 1 minute to go upstairs and talk to the guy, and they brought me the product within like 5 minutes, let's say. I showed a barcode. And then normally in the Apple store, you have this incredible simplicity. So you don't have more than one product of one sort, like just really like everything clean, you know. But then one thing that struck me was that they had lots of like any cell phone store, lots of like cell phone covers. There are just lots of them on a wall. So I'm like, that doesn't feel like Apple. Why the hell do they have so many of them? You know, so many of the same sort. And then I realized this is exactly where you wait for the pickup. So what you can do is that you can just tap your iPhone with an NFC or whatever, maybe a QR code. You just tap on it and just take the cover with you. And like you just pay with Apple Pay in store, and just like this is something maybe it existed for a longer time, but I just didn't realize it. And just that, and I did need a cover for my phone, so like it just led me to make this purchase on in store, for which I didn't need to even wait at all. So I took it with me. So I had to think about it. And for brands, building such experiences in store, it's quite complex. You have to work with an ERP system. You have to work with a POS system. Not everyone has like this Apple ecosystem access. How do you see them coming to terms with these types of connectivity challenges?
I think as well, plays right into the remit of what I almost now deal with daily, right? It's because you said it, right? It's ERP, it's POS. You need to still, like commerce plays a role too in terms of maybe what you were interested in before. And so it's one of the important things then what I said at the beginning with like modern technology, it's also even for larger companies like SAP, which understood that we're not the only ones in the ecosystem there for a brand. Because you said it, right? Like so many different parts in technology play a crucial role, and you need to be able to connect them, right? And so that's what we're trying every day, is we try to offer them technology, almost kind of like the best out of breed approach, where like when we know we are part of the larger ecosystem for a brand, to give them the integration interfaces to basically then connect all these various technologies together, right? Because I just had a phone call, I think yesterday, with a large cosmetics brand, right? And so goal of this call was, let's optimize our tech stack.
Yeah.
And in that call, I heard, I think 8 different providers that we also have part of our ecosystem of different technologies. And they all have their existence right? Because they all add additional value to the brand. Yeah. But again, talking about also spending, you wanna be able to utilize these different technologies all together. Like they all need to connect, and they all need to seamlessly connect in order to add the most value to the end consumer. And only then also your spending becomes more relevant, right? And at the end of the day, I think mentioned at the very beginning, right? Then you're back to the point of not just connecting the technology, but also being able to attribute that to your cost and to the revenue. I think that's very important, right? Because you need to now show how much impact your digital marketing and all these different technologies can actually contribute to, I mean, still the most relevant KPI for business, revenue and profitability.
Absolutely. When I also, we've talked about brands, and your typical customer is not the smallest guys, obviously. And we do like to cater to all kinds of target groups. So someone listening to this podcast, and someone might have a smaller operation and is perhaps overwhelmed with all this that's going on out there in terms of changing journeys. What are your key takeaways for them? Maybe practical tips. Hey, this is a complicated world. It's a tough world to really reach out to the customer and be successful. What are your top 3 recommendations for them to do a better job?
I think the first one, the most important one, is get your data in the right place.
Yeah.
Right. I think, especially if you're maybe a smaller business right now, I think you might even have a huge advantage compared to some of the legacy large enterprise brands out there, because a lot of them are still in digital transformation to get their data into the right place. And I think that could be really an advantage for those smaller brands right now. Leverage the right technology, make sure you collect all the necessary information to just make better decisions. Right. And then the second one is almost kind of like a follow-up of this. Once you have the right data in the right place, you understand your customers, is be flexible enough, right? Be very wise about what technology you implement, because you need to be able to adapt relatively quickly. And I think if you build something up that's going to be so complex and like too complex to make quick changes, it's gonna stop you, right? It's gonna be a huge challenge. It's gonna slow you down. It's gonna have a negative impact on revenue. And the third one, I think, is then really concentrate on the consumer at the end of the day. Right? It's, even though it sounds simple as an advice, right? Like be there where consumers are. But I think if you almost like do step number 1 and 2, it's going to be much easier to then also excel in the last one. Because at the end of the day, we said it throughout our conversation, consumers have these high expectations. They want convenience. So you need to engage with the consumers where they, when and where they engage with your brand, not the other way around. You can't just have a strategy because you're convinced this new sales channel is going to be, you know, like the shit and like everyone is going to buy on it. If your consumers are not there, don't do it. And in order to make that more informed decision, you need to have the data, right? The data is going to help you to make that decision.
Fantastic. Lucas, thank you so much for your insights and your thoughts and knowledge and the experience. I've learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure our listeners and viewers have a lot of takeaways also. And see you at the expo.
Yeah, see you at the expo next year. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the EGN Podcast. If you found our discussion insightful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Your support helps us grow and improve our content. See you next time.